Hey, it's Delay, and this is episode 167 of the Orange Pill Investor. And today I want to talk about the comparison between index funds, dividends, and my favorite, selling covered calls. So instead of doing real research, I guess we're all supposed to use AI now to save ourselves time. And in the spirit of efficiency, I went ahead and asked Grok to compare the average indexed fund annual returns with the average dividend stock annual returns over the past 50 years. Grok gave me the S&P 500 pretty easy, 10%, but it waffled a little bit on giving me the dividend stock returns, and it mentioned the dividend aristocrats, which is, I guess, a select group of 65 S&P 500 stocks. But let's see. Oh, and they have all increased their dividends over the last 25 years. So that would be something that you could, I guess, you could invest in, and they just keep offering more and more dividends over time. But it didn't actually give me the percent, so I had to ask a follow-up question. What is the average returns for dividend aristocrat stocks over the last 25 years? I went ahead and shorted into 25 years because that was the frame. That was the criteria for becoming an aristocrat stock. And again, about 10%, just below the S&P 500 itself. But they said that the dividend stocks were a little bit safer. There's less risk there, which I guess makes sense. If you're going to get a 0.5% less interest, it should be less risky. And I'm just going to go ahead and take this as gospel, and somebody can, correct me in the comments if they'd like. But I'm guessing dividends can't be, it's not like dividends are going to be 20% because then no one would invest in the S&P 500. So I'm just going to assume that these are true because it passes the sniff test as far as I'm concerned. And my conclusion is that index funds, at least the S&P 500 itself, or VOO, and the dividend stocks are not vehicles to create wealth. At best, they're a coping mechanism to mitigate inflation. And I wouldn't even say that they do that, because the natural state of the world is deflationary. So technology is constantly creating abundance for the human race. And so if we're not seeing abundance, then someone is artificially siphoning the natural deflation out of the system and creating inflation, which is making us all poorer and making some nefarious, unknown, anonymous person or persons out there richer. And so really, the natural state of the world is probably like 3 to 5% deflationary. Everything should get cheaper over time. And so really the inflation rate is probably, over the last 50 years, is probably closer to 15%, maybe 14%. And so index funds and dividends is only going to make you go broke slower. It's going to give you the illusion of exponential returns. People like to talk about compound interest. Oh, great, I'm getting compound interest. Well, only if this was all real. And it's not real. What we're seeing are the cooked statistics, and it's trying to look at the system from within the system and maybe I've been watching way too much Jeff Booth lately, but Bitcoin is the only true measure of a free market. Its supply can't be artificially increased or decreased. It's simply an accurate measuring stick for the entire world and everything in it. Now, if you go to work and you're like, you're working 80 hours a week and you have no time or inclination, I guess investing in an index fund or dividends, you can kind of be forgiven for that. But at the same time, that's almost, really, if you're just taking all of the money that you earned and then you're just burning some of it because you're just going to get these 10% returns and you're going to pay 15% inflation. I mean, that's like letting 5% of your merchandise walk out the door via theft, and shoplifters, and just be like, nah, we're not going to put up cameras, we're not going to put security at the door, we're not even going to watch, we're just going to let people take, and we're just going to eat that 5%. Now, I guess that would make sense if it would cost you 10% to save, 10% in security costs to save 5%. I guess that you could argue that. But if somebody was just letting 5% of their profits be just burned up for no reason, I mean, I would call the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline. If I was an employee and I discovered that someone was allowing that to take place. So I don't know why anybody would want to work themselves to the bone just to pretend like they're creating wealth when really they're just bailing water in a sinking ship. Long story short, Bitcoin solves that problem. And I'm going to go ahead and make a little bit of a hypocrite of myself, because selling options is still a tool of the fiat system that is used to that is designed to steal from some and give to others. But for now, it is working. And so maybe I'm doing a little bit of cope on my own because I only trade Bitcoin derivatives. I don't know if that I get a pass for that, or if I'm still like half plugged into the matrix, But for now, these tools seem to be working. Like MicroStrategy has a speculative attack on the US dollar. They're borrowing at ridiculously low interest rates, pumping up the price of Bitcoin, which then pumps up the price of their stock. A year from now, they'll probably have S&P 500 inclusion, and then they'll probably have even more leverage to borrow and buy more Bitcoin. So, do I get a free pass for investing in MicroStrategy? Do I get a free pass for... And by the way, I did sneak in here and smash buy. This is my 5K account. Smash bought like $100 worth of Bitcoin, which you can't remove your Bitcoin off of Robinhood. Last time I checked, so this purchase will. The only purpose of this purchase would be to sell it for more later. So this is not a buy and hodl forever, but I had some buying power. 4th of July, the stock market's closed, Bitcoin's, cheap, can't help myself. Also bought a couple of grand worth on my Tasty Trade account again. At some point, if this pumps to 70 or 80 or 100 or whatever, I can't take it off the exchange and put it in cold storage. So, I bought this specifically to sell it later. And I know Bitcoin maxis are trying to disguise their disgust, maybe. But again, stock market was closed. I got buying power. I'm looking. I buy every Friday with my son on strike, and I don't really want to buy. I like us having the same amount. We both buy like $25 a week, maybe $50 when Bitcoin is cheap, and I like us both having the exact same fraction on our strike accounts. So that's kind of got sentimental reasons. So I couldn't really smash buy on strike. I mean, I guess maybe I need to open another account on, like, I don't know. I think people like River or something. But I refuse to buy on Coinbase anymore because they're not Bitcoin only. They sell a bunch of shit coins. I got DMs in my frickin' X account. Some guy, it's like, you got Web3 experience and we'll pay you to manage the chat from some token that they were, I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. I'm like, I'm a Bitcoin only person. Like, what token are you pitching here? And he told, well, the first clue was he had a .eth in his handle. So I'm like, nah, I'm Bitcoin only. Thank you very much. So I won't even buy on Coinbase because they offer shit coins. But I'm still not quite a purist since I'm still in the system. This is the traditional financial market, and I'm over here using the traditional tools. I think they did have somebody linked to me. It might have been a European account where you can literally sell covered calls on Bitcoin. I may have to take a look at that. I don't know if I'm allowed as an American to get an account, but eventually that might make sense. Unless the tools become sophisticated enough that I can just own Bitcoin, borrow against it, and then how does it work? So in a bear market, you'd probably borrow, and then at the top, or anywhere near the top of a bull market, I guess you'd pay off the debt, and then you do it again when Bitcoin drops. You borrow. I don't know. Somebody blew my mind the other day when they said that they were, let's just say that they had, I don't know, $500,000 worth of Bitcoin or something, and they're like, okay, when I retire, I'm gonna make my allowance 10% of my Bitcoin. And I was like, that didn't compute, but apparently there's a calculator. And if Bitcoin continues to have the same returns it's had over the last 10 years, then Bitcoin will appreciate so much that even though your Bitcoin stack is dwindling, your buying power keeps going up. So that freaked me out a little bit. But anyway, I still got one foot in the tradfi system and one foot in the Bitcoin maxi development. And it's made me start to ask myself some serious questions, because once I am able to quit my 9-to-5 job, what am I going to do with my time? And maybe I'll do some more videos about it. But the two ideas that came up for me are two things that are missing in my life that I would love to see. One would be a meat-based restaurant that can deliver folks healthy meals. If I didn't have to cook my ribeye steak for myself all the time, that would be nice. And it would be nice not to have to ask, was it, when I go out somewhere, was it marinated in seed oils? I just want to know, hey, I'm going to go here and it's going to be meat, eggs, tallow, lard, pork, chicken, grass-fed beef, wild, sustainable hog farms. I think some of these farms even have they got the pasture roped off and the cattle eat all the grass. They stomp the manure back into the dirt, put nutrients back into the soil, and then they move the cattle off. Then I think they bring the chickens in. The maggots are eating the poop. The chickens are eating the maggots. The chickens get fat and happy off their natural. And then, you just keep moving the cows from pasture to pasture and you just keep rotating. So it's completely sustainable and we can stop destroying the world with monocropping and agriculture and veganism. It's kind of funny that one of the ecological claims that vegans have is that meat is destroying the world, and the exact opposite is true. So any vegans offended by that, sorry not sorry. But meat is the optimal proper human diet, and I really got sidetracked. What the fuck am I talking about? Oh yeah. So eventually I want to provide value of some sort, and just moving money around in the stock market, it's kind of fun for me because I'm a big time gamer and this just feels like playing a game to me. But I don't know if it's going to be able to keep me satisfied and I'll be able to derive value from that and purpose and fulfillment or whatever. But providing a healthy meat-based restaurant with just healthful things, and even okay, if we're going to offer something that is like a dessert, okay, we'll get the flour from Europe that doesn't have glyphosates on it, and we'll get organic, I don't know, cane sugar, or maybe honey from Costa Rica or some, who knows. That'll be somebody else's job to figure all that shit out, because I won't be in the kitchen. And then the other idea that I had would be, so I like martial arts, combat sports. I signed up for jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Within just a couple of months, I blew out one knee, or both knees, one at a time. So I sat out for 3 months, rehabbed the knee. Within 2 weeks, I did the same exact injury to the other knee, and I haven't been back. Started taking boxing. I got shit going on in my shoulder, my elbows, and so the other thing that I was kind of interested in would be like a martial arts studio that either has a physical therapist on staff who works with the instructors to develop warm-ups and training routine that would prevent injury, because if you're getting injured, your likelihood of quitting is, I would assume, goes way up. A lot of it has to do maybe with male ego too. Like, I want to just go 110%, really feel like if you're not going 100%, you're wasting your time or whatever. But having a martial arts studio where the exercises are not only designed to prevent injury, but are also designed with the movements that you're going to need in the sport in general. Like, why do we need to run around in a circle? Run around the mat for 5 minutes just to get warm. There's no movement in the sport that involves running. So I don't understand why we can't just warm up drilling some type of movement that makes sense for the art that we're trying to learn in the first place. Something like that, those two types of things are businesses that are missing in my life. I would definitely eat at a meat-based restaurant that was just whole foods, whole foods focused, organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised, sustainable, all that bullshit. I would eat there. It's probably going to be expensive as shit. But then I would also train somewhere that was intelligently designed with a physical therapist's insight. Maybe I can find a physical therapist that's also a BJJ practitioner or something, and put them on staff, or at least pay them to develop the curriculum. So those are just a couple of ideas in the future of Bitcoin and MicroStrategy Moon in 2025. Maybe I'll cash out and start a business that provides real value to my fellow man, and exit the tradfi system completely. I don't know. Until then, though, trading is still kind of a lot of fun, and at least I can bury my head in the sand and say that I'm trading Bitcoin derivatives, whether that's a coping mechanism or not. I don't know. Somebody can let me know if I'm full of shit. But it's definitely a hell of a lot better than this fake wealth building delusion that has spread across the world, that you can just dump your hard-earned savings into the S&P 500 or the VOO or dividends and build wealth. It's a bit of a cope, and so those two investments kind of end up being my favorite punching bag. All right, I think that's all I got for today. Happy 4th of July, and be good, y'all.